What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to take a look at the basics of Svelte JS. Svelte is a component-based JavaScript framework similar to the big three, Angular, React, or Vue. However, its biggest difference is that it uses a compiler and runs at build time. This leads to features like great performance and smaller bundles. I highly recommend you check out a talk by Rich Harris, the creator of Svelte, where he goes into the history of Svelte and his motivations for building it. He was also a guest on the Tuesday podcast where he also shares similar insights. I linked both of these below. Svelte version 3 was just released about a week and a half ago, and I've been noticing some buzz around it. So I decided I'd make a video about it and show you the basics. We'll build a to-do app with Svelte, and I know to-do apps are boring, but I really do believe that building one is a great way to learn a new framework or language. I've done the same for Angular, React, and Vue, and I figured I'd do the same thing for Svelte. I'm probably going to be referring to Vue a lot in this video because in my opinion, Svelte and Vue are very similar in a lot of ways and share a lot of the same principles. So here's the to-do app we'll be building. As you expect, all the CRUD functionality in a to-do app is available, so you can add, you can edit, you can delete, and there's some other features like a count, check all, active, completed, and all that good stuff. And there's also some subtle animations, which we'll take a look at. And that's because, okay, there it is, cool. Okay, so I highly recommend going through the tutorial, which is what I did. I gave this thing a read through. And after my first read-through, I felt like I had a good handle on how the framework worked. So after you do that, if you want to play around, which I highly recommend, check out the REPL here. Or sorry, not the REPL, the examples, which is a REPL as well, but it has specific examples. And we'll go through a few here. So here's the hello world. So similar to Vue, you have a single file component where you have your JavaScript, your markup, and there's also a section for styles. And here we declare a variable and output it here. So very basic. And here is an image. Nothing too much going on here. Here is styling. Again, we have this style block where you can style your components. And by default, they are scoped, which you can see in this next example. You can see there's two files here. And the styles for this component don't bleed out into the nested component. And what's this one? This one is just HTML tags, which render some HTML. And for reactivity, this just shows the reactivity of Svelte. So we have a function and we increment the count variable, and there's a click event here. And it increments. Declarations. So this is like computed properties in Vue. So if you have a property that depends on other properties, it will update if those other properties are changed. So in this case, these are computed properties, and we denote that with this $sign syntax. We'll take a look at all of this in our to-do app. Props. So obviously these component-based frameworks are all based on structuring your app using many components. And the most basic way to pass data around is by props. And you can see here we have app, and then we have a nested component called nested here. And we're passing in a value of 42. And then here's how you accept props. You have to have this export syntax, and then you can render it out here or use it however you like. There's also default values you can use. That's the default value for the prop if nothing's passed in, just like prop types in React, or you can also do that in Vue. You can do this. What else? Okay, so logic. So if you need any logic in your templates, you can make use of this. This is very similar to directives in Vue or Angular, which I personally like. We'll go through all this again, but you can do if, else, else if for loops, and you can also await promises, which is pretty great. events, events. I don't know what else to say about events. You need events for your app to work. Here's how you do it. The syntax is this syntax right here. So we have on, colon, and then the event name. So bindings, this is similar to two-way data binding in Vue or Angular. You can use this syntax, and then this will update as you type. Cool. And you have lifecycle hooks, similar to lifecycle hooks in the other frameworks. You even have a store for state management. And one of my favorite features of Svelte is the built-in animations and transitions, which we'll take a look at a very basic level, but it's very easy to use and very intuitive, which I really like. What else is here? There's also some context. And yeah, so that's the gist of it. Definitely play around with these and you'll have a better feel for the framework. But now let's go ahead and install it. So I think there's a quick start here. So we're going to use this tool, Degit, which is a project scaffolding tool. You don't really have to know what it is. You can just use npx, and that's what we'll do here. So do this. You paste that in, and then I'll change the project name to Svelte to do example. And then we can cd into it to do example. And then we can npm install. And then after that, we can do npm run dev to open up a server on port 5000. Okay, let me open this up in VS Code. And then we will run npm run dev. Oops, npm run dev. So open up localhost 5000, and you can see the default app. Okay, so there it is. So let's take a look at the folder structure here. Also make sure to install a syntax highlighter. VS Code suggested one when I open app.svelte. Okay, so we have our main JS entry point where the app gets scaffolded. Let me just close this. The target is the body. And we're also importing the default app component here, and we're also passing it a prop of name. Here is the default component. We're accepting that prop here. And here it is, hello world, because we're passing it in from here. So as you expect, if you change something here, this should update. Cool. And also note that Svelte uses Rollup as its module bundler as opposed to Webpack. That's because Rich Harris is also the creator of Rollup. But you can swap it out and use something else like Webpack if you want. But we'll stick with Rollup. Okay, so I want to set up the markup and the HTML for our to-do app, which I showed you earlier. And I'm just going to take the CSS from the project I did in Vue. Now, in that project, I use Sass. So let's quickly see how we can install Sass. So I'm using this library here. And all we have to do is npm install it like this. And then in our rollup config, we just have to add preprocess style equals Sass. And then we can do style in here. We can do style lang equals Sass, like that. Similar to how you do it in Vue. So let's install this. I'm going to stop this. Okay, and let's import these two in our rollup config. Put it down here. And then in plugins, right here, let's do this. So preprocess style Sass. So let's put it under here. Let's put it above the CSS. Let's put it there. I'm very indecisive. Okay, so that should do it. Save that. Save this. And now Sass should work. Let's see. Let's try using some Sass here. Hover, color green. Okay, let's restart Svelte. Okay, sorry. I think I did this twice. Yeah, we already have this up here. So we don't need this. Let's try again. Okay. And let's see if our app works. Okay, cool. So, like I said, I'm going to take the HTML and the markup from my Vue project and just replace this. So, let's paste it in. Again, it may look like a lot, but this has nothing to do with Svelte. Script is empty right now. This is all just style, so it doesn't look ugly, and it looks the same as my other project. And we don't need this because we're going to be using the built-in transitions. I'm going to change light green to salmon. And here is the markup. I think I didn't import this yet. This I forgot to delete. That's from Vue. But like everything else in here is just HTML. And we'll gradually build this up, and here's how it looks. Okay, so yeah, that was showing a cached version. Let me just put this in. Okay, so I just put it in public img here, and this should work now. Cool. And does this, okay, so the salmon works. And again, these are all just hard-coded. Actually, I think I'm missing a few global styles because these styles in here, in this app Svelte, only apply to whatever's in here. Because like I said before, the CSS is scoped to this component, but I want some global styles. So I ended up putting it in this global.css. So as you can see, there are some base global styles here. I will comment this out. I should just delete it actually, but here are my base styles. And now, there we go. There we go, actually. So these are my base styles. So yeah, I'll make a commit here. So if you want to start from here, you can easily do that using Git. So let me just do that actually. Let me initialize it and git add initial hard-coded layout. Cool. Okay, now we can finally start on working on the app. So the first thing I want to do is just read some to-dos. So I want to have an array of to-dos and just iterate over them in here and show them here. So I am going to define some state here. And as you saw in the examples, you just define them as variables here. So I'm just going to paste in some to-dos. I have 3 of them. And here they are. They also have completed and editing, which we'll make use of later. But the thing we're interested in is the title. And now, if we go to where the to-do items are, so right here, there's 3 of them. So it's called to-do item. So we only need 1 now. So let me delete this. And now there should only be 1. Oops, I think it's not running. npm run dev. Okay, so there's only 1 here. And let's go back to the examples here and see how to use this stuff over here. And we want to iterate over it. So let's check out the each block. And here's how you do it. So here they're using destructuring and they're also using the index, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. So I'm just going to grab this, and that's how you close it, like that. And for each to-do item, we can do that. Just like that. We don't need the index. We don't need to destructure. So I'm going to do to-dos as to-do. And let me just close this actually. How do you close it again? Just like this. Cool. Let's indent this. And I want to render the title. So let's just do that. So it's just to-do.title. And let's see if this works. There we go. Cool. Okay, let's see if we can work like this. And I actually don't need the sidebar much because I'm just going to put everything in this one component. Okay, so next thing I want to do is make adding to-dos work. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is add some state to hold whatever the user types in here. So let's put that up here. And let's call it new to do. Let's make it empty. And to do two-way data binding, maybe I shouldn't work like this. We'll try. Just do this. Bind value equals name. Just put this back. Okay. And that goes on to the input. So let's go ahead and look for that. What needs to be done? We can put it here. And it was new to do. And we also need to listen for the key down event. If this was a form, but it's not a form, we can listen to the submit event, but it's not a form. So we can do, on key down equals, and this is where the method goes. We're going to make a new method called add to do. And up here, let's make that method. So let's put it under our variables here. So let's do function add to do. And we can accept the event because we need to listen for the enter key. And we can do event.which. And we can have a const for the enter key. And later on, I also need one for the escape key. So I'm going to put it up here. And those are the key codes that we need. So if it's enter key, then we can just push to the array. So it says to-dos.push. And let's just hardcode ID 4 completed. False. Title is new to do, and that is going to update as the user types in, so that's fine. And editing is false. Okay. And let's see if this works. It's not going to work, but I'll show you why in a second. So if we add enter, nothing happens. And unfortunately, Svelte doesn't have DevTools. At least it doesn't have an official DevTools. So it's kind of hard to show you what's going on. But let me just tell you what's going on. We have to reassign this to-dos because when you assign something, that's when Svelte knows it's reactive. So if we just do this, then this should actually work. And you'll see it update here. And let's also clear out the text box. So we can do new to do equals this. Okay, so let's try that again. Add, and there it is. Cool. Awesome. If you don't like this syntax, you can actually do a spread. But I'm okay with this syntax. Let me just show you the spread syntax. I'll put it up here, but I'll comment it out. So yeah, that's the spread syntax. And I'll just comment that out for now. I'm okay with this way. So instead of hard coding 4, I'm going to add some state here to hold that called temp to do. Start with 4, and then as we add 1, we'll increment that. So this will be temp to do. Not temp to do, temp ID, sorry. and we can just increment that here. Temp ID, we can do plus plus, but I'll just do it this way. Temp ID +1. Okay, now let's work on deleting. So I want to click on this X, and then I want it to delete that specific to do. So let's look for the X. I believe it's times. Yeah. So we can have a new event here. So on click is fine. Say delete to do. And we want to pass in, we can pass in the index, but I'm going to do it a functional way and pass in the ID. So to do.id. And let's go ahead and define that function. Actually, let me show you one thing before we define it, or after we define it. Delete to do function, delete to do ID, and let me just console log the ID. And let me show you one thing. Open DevTools, and if you can see that, you can see that it automatically ran as this app started, and we don't want that. We want it to happen once we click on it. So to do that, we just have to wrap this. Whenever we have an argument, then we have to wrap it in an arrow function, similar to React. I don't know what that div came from. So now, there you go. It only runs when we click it. So there we go. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. So let's go ahead and finish the delete to do. All we have to do is filter to-dos, and we just want to filter out the to-do that doesn't equal the ID coming in. Not equal ID, and that's it. Okay, now delete should work. Awesome. Okay, now let's work on editing to-dos, and I'm just going to stick with, for now at least, let me just refresh this. Checking this and then marking the to-do as completed and then crossing this out. So I already have a CSS class that puts a line through this, and I think it's just called completed. So let's just see if that works first. So where am I looking at? So right here, I think it's here. Yeah, so if I just put completed, this should put a line through. Okay, it does. So let's quickly just set the checkbox, put an event on the checkbox, and the event I want to listen for is the checked event. And if that happens, we just want to mark the to-do as completed. So we can just do that right in here. And now to apply that class, if it's completed, then we just do this syntax. You can use a ternary here if you like, but we want to apply a class of completed if the to-do is completed. And now, let's see if this works. If we check it, there we go. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so like I said, we'll work on the double clicking of this and editing this later on. So now let's take a look at this feature where it reactively updates this as we check this off. So let's look for that. Items left right here. And I am going to replace this with a property called to-dos remaining. And let's go up here and let's make a reactive property similar to Vue's computer properties. And I'm going to put it under the functions. And that is denoted with a $, to-dos remaining. And then we can do to-dos.filter. And we just want the ones that are not completed and then take the length of that. So to do, not to do, completed, dot length. And that should do it. Let's see if that works. And let's see if this updates. It does, cool. Not sure why it's complaining here. What's the error message? Okay, but it does work. Okay, now let's work on check all. So let's see where that is. Check all. And let's put an event on this. And the event's going to be on change. And let's give it a function of check all to-dos. And let's go ahead and define that. So back up here. Let's put it here. Function check all to-dos. And it takes in the event. And you can use a map here if you like, but I'm just going to use a for each. So to-dos dot for each. And we just want to check them all. So to do. So it's completed. To do dot completed. And it's going to be based on if the check all checkbox is checked. So event.target.checked. And don't forget, to make this reactive, we have to reassign it. So let me do that. And see if this works. Okay. Check all. Awesome. Uncheck all. Cool. And did this update? Yes, it did. Cool. Okay, let's work on clear completed. So where's that? Clear completed. Let's put a click handler on that. On click equals clear completed. And define that in our functions. Let's put it right here. Function clear completed. No params. And all we have to do is filter it down. Filter to do, not to do dot completed. And that's it. Let's remove these two. Cool. Okay, now let's work on these filters. So let's look for a filter. Here it is. And I'm going to do this all at once. I'm going to set a click handler on them. And I want to run a function when that happens. And that's going to take a parameter, so I have to wrap it in a method. I don't know why VS Code does that. Called update filter. And for each one, I'm going to change the filter, and we'll put some state in a second. So active and completed. And let's make a state. We'll define this method, but let's make some state first called current filter. And let's default it to all. And let's make a method called update filter. Let's put it right here. Function update filter. And all we have to do is current filter gets filter. Okay, so that's going to update the current filter, but we want this to update. And right now, this is iterating over just the to-dos. So where's that? Right here. So what we want is a computed property, or a reactive property, sorry. I'm just very used to Vue, called filtered to-dos. And that would be filtered based on the current filter. So we'll do that. And let's go ahead and define that reactive property. So let's go back up here. And it's going to paste it in to save some time. And you'll see what I'm doing here. So again, $sign to denote that it's reactive. And so here's what's going on. We're checking if the current filter is all, then we're just going to return the to-dos, and that's the default state. But if it's not all, then there's another conditional in here. If it's completed, then just filter out the completed ones. And if it's not completed, then filter out the not completed ones. So now this should work. So if I check one, this is all, but now active should be just take over world. And it does work. And completed should be the first two. Awesome. And all should still work. And we want this to stay in the correct state, so we can change that. Let's see. Where's that? Right here. We can just do that syntax. So for this one, class active, we want class active on this one if current filter is equal to all. And we can do the same for the other ones. So this should be, sorry, this should be outside. Okay, so there it is. And I'm going to do the same for the other ones. Just change this. Okay, so, okay, there you go. Cool. Okay, now let's work on the double clicking of this so we can edit that to do. So we have a label here, and we also want the text box to show up, and that will render based on if the to-do is in an editing state or not. So let's just render out the text box first, and I have it in my clipboard. I'm going to paste it in, and we're going to bind the value to the to-do title so the text box is filled out. And let me close this and see how that looks. Okay, so that's a start. Now, like I said, we only want this to show if it's based if it's editing or not. So if it's not editing, then show this, else show that. And we can close the if here. And you can indent if you like. So now this would go back to before. Okay. So now we want to double click this. So let's put a event handler on that. We can put it here. Say on dbl click equals, let's put an arrow function. Actually, let's do this first. Arrow function. And let's call a method called edit to do and pass in the to do. So let's go ahead and define that function up here. And all that's going to do, hold on. Let's put it right here. Function edit to do, takes in the to do. And all that does is take the editing value and set it to true. And then just reassign it so it's reactive. And now double clicking should show the text box now. I refresh. And it doesn't. Did I spell that right? Edit to do. What is this? VS Code keeps adding this. I don't know what that is. Okay, so now that should work. Okay. Okay, there we go. But we also want this to autofocus. So I'm going to add autofocus here. That should take care of autofocus once it renders. Okay, cool. Same for this. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now Once we lose focus or press enter, then we want something to happen. So let's add that event for here. And I'm going to put it right here. Say on blur equals, and let's put an arrow function again. It's called a done edit function and pass in the to do. And let's put a space there. And let's define that. Let's go up here. And basically the same thing, but I'm just going to copy this. We are setting it to false. And it's called done edit. And now go to store, change, and if we blur, then that works. Cool. And I'm going to add one more function here so we can press enter. So I'm going to do that. Done edit. I'm going to call it key down. And I'm going to pass in the event here as well. And I'm just going to check the key that's being pressed. So event.which, and we did this earlier. Enter key. Then we can call done edit and pass in this to do. And now down here where I blurred, I can also do the same thing. For key down. Done edit key down. And we need to pass in the event as well. So we can get the enter key, and now enter should work as well. So go to store, changed, enter, and it works. Awesome. Screencast change. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to add some stuff behind the scenes, just so it's a little more robust. Like for example, I want to be able to press escape and then not commit the changes. And also I don't want blank inputs to be accepted, but I'll do that behind the scenes. Okay, so one thing I want to add here, which is not really relevant to our to-do app, but is important in these types of frameworks, is lifecycle hooks and also AJAX calls. So I'm going to combine those two and just make an AJAX request to an external API and just console log it, just so you can see the workflow, because you often do that in these types of frameworks. So I'm going to use the mounted hook, which gets called when the component is mounted. So let's go ahead and do that. You have to import something. So I'm going to go ahead and do that up here. To import this on mount. And then to use it, let's go down here to our functions. I'll put it right here. And we can call it like this, on mount. And I'm going to run an async function. And I'm going to make use of an API that just gets quotes from Kanye West. And it's called Kanye.rest. So yeah, very, very straightforward. So let's do await. And I'm just going to use fetch here so I don't have to import Axios. It's just api.kanye.rest. And then let's grab the response. We have to await res.json. And then it's just console log it. And it comes back as response.quote. Okay, let's see if this works. So there you go. There is a Kanye West quote, and each time the component mounts, or each time we refresh the page, there is a new one. Cool. Okay, last thing I want to take a look at is transitions. I highly recommend you read the tutorial for transitions. We'll just take a look at the very basics of it. But this is one of my favorite features of Svelte. And let me just show you how easy it is. So you import the transitions or animations you want. And I'm going to import two of them. Fade and fly. So we'll take a look at fade first. And then to add the fade effect, just add this attribute here. So in this case, transition fade. So not false, fade. And that is literally it. Now these will fade in and out based on if you're adding them or deleting them. So there you go. How simple was that? Let's take a look at the other one I imported called fly. And this one has some parameters that you can control right here. So we just do this, and then we can do the Y value. And I just want a subtle change in Y axis, 20 pixels. And you can also set the duration of it. And I want this to be subtle as well, so 300 milliseconds. And that is it. Now it's going to come in and out from the bottom based on if you're adding it. So it's going to come in if I add it. Awesome. And then if we remove it, it's going to go in the opposite direction. Awesome. So this is by far the easiest transition library I work with. And it's great. Again, read the tutorial as there are more advanced transitions that you can make use of. So there you have it, guys. We've taken a look at the basics of Svelte JS version 3 and built out this functional to-do app along the way. After using it, I personally think it's great, and I'm very excited to see this project grow. Definitely give the documentation a read, the tutorial, and just play around with the REPL or some example projects like this one. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.